Welcome to Vintage SF. I'm Richard Rempel, and today we're going to try something a little different. This is normally the view you would expect, but I have a new piece of equipment called a gimbal, and so we're going to set it up here in the corner and take a look at my library. Welcome to my library. Today is the last video of year 2 of Vintage SF. I'll also have a special offer at the end of this video. We'll start with a few odds and ends. So down here I have my reading chair and a table with some of the books. Just finished reading Stanislaw Lem's Fiasco. Going to talk about it with Bart. This video should be up already on my website. And I'm also finishing off with the last of the A Science Fiction Specials Series 3. That was a special project over the last 2 years to finish A Science Fiction Specials 1, 2, and 3. On this wall here, we have some artwork from my daughter, along with some crocheting by her. I love sunflowers and plant them regularly in my garden, and so that's why I have these here. We also thought it might be a little bit of a sound buffer. I'm not so sure about that now. But you'll also see that I have a curtain that can act as a sound buffer. And I have a top shelf there, bulletin board. This is a shelf that's a 2x4, IKEA. Then we have top shelf in that corner there as well, some more artwork by my daughter. And this is a 5x5 shelf, Kallax, K-A-L-L-A-X by IKEA if you're interested. My desk, which is attached to it. And 1x4 shelf over here in the corner. In this corner, I also have a closet, and this closet I use this cloth curtain as another sound absorption technique. So let's take a look at the shelves. We'll start off with this one here in the corner. This is a picture of my father. He was an agricultural engineer. He was designing that swather. He was definitely outstanding in his field. But behind here, we have James S.A. Corey's The Expanse, all 9 novels, as well as the short story collection Memories Legion. That will be a future project of mine. You're going to hear me saying that a few times. Now, I like to collect my books in order of size, also in order of topic, or perhaps in order of publisher. Here we have some short story collections or anthologies. We also have an omnibus by Jack Vance, The Dying Earth. Next row down, we have Ian M. Banks, some of the culture novels that I'm collecting. That will be a future project again. And Jack McDevitt, some hardcovers. You'll also see a collection of his A format paperbacks coming up. This could be another project, reading through Jack McDevitt. And down here, we have modern library copies of John Wyndham. I also have a few SF rediscovery books and a few Alistair Reynolds paperbacks. The bottom shelf is empty right now. I'm using it for my DSLR camera here. So that's the first shelf. Before we look at the top of this 5x5 shelf, let's look in the shelves themselves. The top row is SF Masterworks, the Yellow Spine editions. We start with the hardcovers. They're organized by the last name of the author. And then with the soft covers, we start again with Brian Aldiss. Now, these are 13 by 13 shelves, and so I've created what I call a mezzanine in the back. So this is my second row of SF Masterworks. Coming to the second cubicle, you can see some Arthur C. Clarke, a lot of Philip K. Dick, Harlan Ellison. In this row, you'll see Sterling E. Lanier. These are the hero novels that came out last year. There is a third one rumored to be coming out. They keep putting off the publication. Apparently Sterling E. Lanier had written most of it and then had an outline. One of his relatives completed it, and supposedly it's going to be coming out from Golanx. Now, I've had experience with some novels that were published posthumously with St. Leibowitz and the Wild Horsewoman by Walter M. Miller Jr. It didn't meet the expectations I was hoping for. So it'll be interesting to see if there is a third novel in the Hero series, whether it meets expectations of its fans. I've read about the first decade of Ursula K. Le Guin material, and I'm looking forward to reading more. She's one of my favorite authors. So this would be the sixth row, I guess you could say, since they're doubled up. Lots of Christopher Priest in here. I really enjoy his work. A couple of Dan Simmons, some Robert Silverberg. Cordwainer Smith, that's another project. I'd like to read all of his work, which is not so much. It's very achievable. Very interesting person. And then Olaf Stapledon. A few months ago, I had a chat with Autumn Purser, who is an illustrator for the best of SF Masterworks. Actually, I have a copy right here. So that's Autumn Purser's artwork, and he did them for all that series. And his favorite author, oh, by the way, that interview was conducted while he was on a ship in Antarctica. Of course, you can find that on my channel. Olaf Stapledon was one of his favorite authors, and he's been making pictures for Olaf Stapledon's Last and First Men. He was currently working on a series of 3D pictures for Last and First Men. This just was a project of his own. I plan to start reading some Olaf Stapledon, and I'd love to reconnect with Autumn Purser and see some of his 3D pictures he's creating for Last and First Men. From that row and into the back row, there are some Strugatsky books. I haven't read any Strugatsky yet. And over here we finish off with Roger Zelazny. He's an author I've been getting into with the encouragement of friends. The Golden Age Masterworks are beside it. They're the ones with the yellow and black spines. In the back mezzanine here, I have William Gibson's novels and a short story collection. They are on a Golanx format. And these are the old SF Masterworks with the black spines. Several of them were not reprinted, and I do have those. I had one straggler from the Golden Age Masterworks back here. I also have a great novel by Walter Tevis, Mockingbird. I have not read Dan Simmons' Song of Cali, but I understand it's a great fantasy novel. That does it for the first row. Let's go to the next 5 in the second row. I have trade paperbacks and some hardcovers in here from the Tor Essentials publication line. I recently did a video and a post about them. There's 31 of them, with 2 more being published this year. One that is supposed to come out in July is The Prestige by Christopher Priest. Here I have a trade paperback collection of Alistair Reynolds. Slowly I've been collecting books by him and Ian M. Banks as they become available. I haven't read them yet. Although I must say I have listened to The House of Suns on a vacation car trip. Here are a couple hardcovers by Alistair Reynolds, as well as some remainders of Moorcock hardcovers. The Bradbury collection here is 100 stories. This I was really excited to find in Santa Fe, New Mexico. I was shopping along with one of the viewers of this channel, and he was delighted at my childhood glee when I found this book for a couple of bucks. This is just an assortment of books that I've collected, including a 2-volume biography of Robert A. Heinlein. On this shelf, we have Christopher Priest hardcovers, Adam Roberts hardcovers, and Thomas M. Dish hardcovers. That's row 2. Let's go to row 3. I'm just going to move this microphone out of the way. Once again, an assortment of hardcovers. I like to organize them in terms of size first. So that's why my shelves look organized in terms of how they're lined up and fronted, perhaps you could say, but not really organized otherwise. In here, I have some of the Science Fiction Book Club editions. That's the publication that I'm purposely put into this shelf. On this shelf here, once again, there's a variety, but at the back, there's the start of my A format paperbacks, vintage paperbacks. We'll get to those. I just want to mention, I talked about Walter M. Miller Jr.'s St. Leibowitz and the Wild Horse Woman. Right beside it, this came from my friend Matt Defoe. I have The Best of Walter M. Miller Jr. This is a great, great collection of stories. If you like The Canticle for Leibowitz, I recommend The Best of Walter M. Miller Jr. So, in the mezzanine in the back, here, let me just pan up a little bit. Here is the start of my A format paperbacks by author. These are the vintage ones, starting with Aldous, then Baxter, Blish, then we move on to Bradbury and Brunner. In the back here, you'll see some John W. Campbell, some Clark, Compton, Cooper, and the start of some Dish. Continuing here, some Ellison, Haldeman, start of some Hamilton. Moving to the back, we see some Harness, some M. John Harrison, Heinlein, and Zena Henderson. Some James P. Hogan, Fred Hoyle, Monica Hughes. Those are juvenile novels. Neil R. Jones, Gary Kilworth. There's one more Sterling E. Lanier that I found that I'd like to read. And then we have some Ursula K. Le Guin, C.S. Lewis, Barry Malzberg, and Richard Matheson. Now, moving to the fourth row, it comes underneath the desk. I'm not going to go to the far end to start with. I want to continue here. This is where I still have my A format vintage SF paperbacks. And you can see I have a box of baking soda. There's actually hidden around here different containers of baking soda because it absorbs the smells from books. So if you have old book smells, or perhaps they smell of smoke from a home that had someone who smoked, This helps eliminate that smell. It absorbs it. And I try and refresh it regularly. So continuing on here in the library, let me just raise that a little bit. There's a couple of books that were recommended to me right there on the end. Ward Moore and Merlin's Ring by Munn. A couple Nortons, a couple of Alan E. Norse. We have Pangborn and Alexei Panshin. In the back row, let's see if we can get that. We have some Niven and Purnell, a couple Adam Roberts, some Robinson, and Carl Sagan's Contact. Robert J. Sawyer, James H. Schmitz, Bob Shaw. As you can see, I'm still figuring out this gimbal. Continuing Bob Shaw there at the back. Clifford D. Simak. Some Stableford. We're going to see a few more of his. Lots of A.E. Van Vogt. Some James White, some Colin Wilson, and then we start to get into some anthologies. But before we get to that, I have on this shelf some Pan Lousenge Pan science fiction books. And so I decided to keep this publisher separate. So this is an example. The term Pan lozenge for this livery came from Stephen E. Andrews, the outlaw bookseller. A number of us who watch his channel have tried to collect some of them. So you can see my collection here, including Stableford's 6-novel series, starting with Halcyon Drift. These are the adventures of Star Pilot Granger. And in the back, I have a bit of Zelazny and some anthologies. So in row 4, we missed one right under my desk here. Let's just go to that one. There's a bit of an assortment of hardcovers here. And below it, some more, as well as James Blish's Star Trek stories and these Star Trek readers. Also some nonfiction in Astounding and Trillion Year Spree. Beside it, I have some trade paperbacks. There's an assortment there. That cord is the plug-in for my computer. Some more trade paperbacks. As you can see, I've arranged them by size. And on this shelf here, in particular, I have some Octavia Butler and a few Paul Macaulay's. I'm looking forward to reading those two authors. I haven't read any of their work yet. And an empty shelf. I do have some room for more mezzanine shelves if needed, but they're difficult to see behind some of the hardcovers or large trade paperbacks. Let's go now to my 2x4 shelf here. On the top of it, let's actually go a little bit higher. On the bulletin board, I've got a few different posters I've created for John Wyndham covers from a couple of different series, the Modern Library one and the Penguin one with Peter Lord covers. We have a poster that came from Science Fiction Book Club. This is John Berkey's painting. I had a Wyndham book that came apart and I had another one, so I just put the cover up here on the board. It's for a novel published posthumously, Web, This one actually was pretty good. You can see a poster I created here also for Ursula K. Le Guin and the first printing of The Left Hand of Darkness. Over here I have the cover art for The Palace of Eternity in the A Science Fiction Specials Series 1. This is by Leo and Diane Dillon. And here I have a couple of older paperbacks, as well as some paperbacks that I'm going to be reading for some collaborations. With Ira of SF Words of Wonder and Matt Defoe of Science Fiction Reads, I read the Best of series from Del Rey. There's 21 books in that series, along with 2 others that didn't really match the livery but were published in the 80s. The Best of series here was published in the 1970s. And on the other side, I'm going to be reading Indoctrinaire by Christopher Priest with Chris of Liminal Spaces. So you can look forward to those 2 collaborations coming up. All right, let's get to the shelves. On the top shelf, I have omnibuses from Gateway. I did a video about these. There are 51, and I have a spreadsheet for them. There's also a small series from Golanx as well. Gateway is Golanx, by the way. In this series, I'm not collecting it, but I have a couple of examples. We can see Big Planet by Jack Vance. It was called the Collector's Edition. I can't remember how many books there were. I think it's around the 60 to 70 range of these. Once again, I do have a video. My next shelf here is my shelf for research primarily, with the exception of Ursula K. Le Guin's The Books of Earthsea. This is the complete illustrated edition, illustrated by Charles Vess. A beautiful, beautiful book. I've read 3 stories so far in this book. I guess I should say 3 books I've read in this omnibus. Very helpful for research is the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction and the Encyclopedia of Fantasy. John Clute has been involved in both of these along with some other writers. I also have some encyclopedias here that are illustrated encyclopedias. This one by David Pringle, John Clute. It's an illustrated edition and an abridged edition of this book. And James Gunn from the 70s, Alternate Worlds. Another book that I have that I haven't really looked at is The World of Science Fiction from 1926 to 1976 by Lester Del Rey. He calls it The History of a Subculture. If anyone's read that, I'd love to hear what you think of it. Going down to the second shelf. Here I have some anthologies and best ofs. You can see I have 5 volumes of Hugo winners. The very first one here has both volume 1 and 2. On this side here, I have Annual World's Best SF from Daw. This is an incomplete collection. Beside it, I have some omnibus editions from Jeff Vandermeer, along with a straggling Michael Bishop on the side. The third shelf has my Stanislav Lem collection, along with Penguin and vintage books. There's some odds and ends here, a couple of Penguins. We have some Golanx books, including a number by Ursula K. Le Guin. And we have some robot novels by Asimov. And on the bottom, I have my collection of NESFA Press, New England Science Fiction Association Press, where they've collected works by authors who seem to be out of print. They bring them back into print. They're an amazing organization. I really like their work. And this purplish blue one here, when I do my project on Cordwainer Smith, I will be definitely into that book because it has his complete stories. All right, I've taken you through the shelves here inside this room, except for the top shelves. Let's move up to take a look at the top of this bookcase. There's a lizard hanging out in the corner, and we have a collection of Neil Stevenson books. Here is one of my surprises for this video. I have created business cards that can act like bookmarks for my channel. I've used famous covers from the Ace Science Fiction Specials and also from Astounding magazine in 1939. This is a cover from The Palace of Eternity by Bob Shaw, The Left Hand of Darkness, first printing by Ursula K. Le Guin, and then this is the Astounding magazine that is thought to have started the golden age of science fiction, edited by John W. Campbell with a story by A.E. Van Vogt. These books up here are my collection for the next book haul coming for this month. I have a viewer in Toronto who loves to send postcards, encouraging postcards, so that's what you see on the right. It's from Penguin Books. A couple of Stephen E. Andrew books that I use for reference. A painting by my daughter here in the background. The Three Body Problem trilogy. And a box set of H.G. Wells books. Moving on, I'm just going to get my chair to stand on. On this top shelf, I have the Science Fiction Hall of Fame books. An excellent, excellent anthology of short stories and novellas. Here's my dog collection. Then we have novels by Benford, Bear, and McDevitt. And a box of postcards from Penguin. Coming to this side, we're coming to my Ace Science Fiction Specials. I have the complete Series 1 with the exception of the reprint for The Left Hand of Darkness. On its cover, it has sort of a gold medallion saying that it's won the Hugo and Nebula Awards. Both The Left Hand of Darkness and Neuromancer are first prints, true firsts. Then I have the rest of the series, and I have one out here. It's an example of the Leo and Diane Dillon covers for the series. They were the primary artists with just a couple exceptions. I also collected a few books that were destined to be Ace Science Fiction Specials but did not make it. Because they were purchased for the series, I decided to add them to my collection. Then Series 2 was not very good. Terry Carr was not involved in that series. I only have 2 books from that series. I have The Invincible by Stanislav Lem, that's number 4, and number 10, Bob Shaw's Orbitsville. And then you see some of the books from Series 3 beside it. On my table beside my chair, I had the last few novels from that series. Moving over, I'm just going to step over here. Beside the Ace Science Fiction Special Series 3, I have my John Wyndham novels. The ones in orange are the Penguins with the Peter Lord covers. That is this poster over here. There's kind of 2 periods for John Wyndham's novels. There's pre-World War II and post-World War II. His most famous work is post-World War II. He passed away in 1969. We see the best of collection that I have here. Some of the ones at the beginning are from different publishers. For example, Pocketbook Science Fiction. But then you have the Del Rey editions that I'm going through with Ira and Matt. And to finish it off, Crown Science Fiction hardcovers. There's a 10-book series that they created in the 1980s, and those are up there. I've read 3 of those. We also have a nook in our bedroom where I have my Edgar Rice Burroughs books and my Ace Science Fiction doubles. Have a few classics, some westerns, some mysteries, a couple more Ace doubles. And on the bottom shelf, you might be interested in some of my graphic novels and a couple Stephen King and Michael Connelly books. Now, at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that there's a special offer for you. These 3 business cards that I've created could be yours. Postage in Canada is $1.44 for a letter, and to United States, $1.75. Here's what I was thinking. If you give me a super thanks for $2 and then email me at vintagesf@icloud.com with your address, I will send these 3 business cards to you. Or if you just want 1 or 2 of them, just let me know. Now, of course, you can always give me a super thanks without any attachments as well. Offer's good until I run out of these cards. So I hope you enjoyed the library tour. Until next time, keep reading.